Welcome Wargamers to another Mid-Sussex YouTube channel video. I'm Chris and today I'm doing a slightly different video. It's a army building tutorial, if you like. So if you're a new player or a veteran player looking to start a new army, then perhaps these videos will help. This week I'm looking at Thorin's company in the army of Thror and Durin's folk, and perhaps allying in the two. So basically dwarves all round. This isn't necessarily the correct way to build an army list, but it's what I look for when building an army list. So to begin, as you can see in front of you, I have Thorin Oakenshield, Daddy Thrain, and Proper Thror. And the reason, well, to start with, the reason I got these three models anyway was because as soon as I heard the Hobbit films coming out, I reread the books, and these three characters were my favourite part of the storyline and the line of Durin. So immediately, as soon as he came out, I picked up Thror, slightly converted there, so he's got his Orc crest with him as well, because I has both. Sorry, did I say Thror? I meant Thorin. This is Thror and Thrain, which all three in the game are very, very powerful heroes, but all pointed, well, these two are pointed the same, but Thorin pointed much more favourably if you're going to pick him. And that's pretty much what I thought as soon as I picked up the Unexpected Journey book and saw the points cost them all and saw Thorin. The obvious option is always Thorin, because of he's, I won't give away specific points, but he's quite a lot cheaper than his dad and granddad and does pretty much the same thing. He's Fight 6, Strength 4, Defense 7 base, but obviously he can take his Oakenshield, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, Courage 6, and then 3-3-3, so he's pretty solid all round. And then he can take his Magic Sword, which is an Elven Blade, and does multi-wounds, potentially, to Orcs, Goblins, or Urukai. So they're his really cool special rules. Thror has his Arkenstone, which can go wrong, so he gets free fate points if he passes someone a 4+. He only starts with one base, but he keeps it if he scores on a 4+, and he passes the fate on a 3. However, if he does pass on a 3, he then loses that fate point. So if you roll a 1 or a 2, basically that rule that he's paying a lot for is nulled. it's not worth it compared to Thorin. And finally, Thrain. Now he's probably better than Thor, I'd say. Thror, although he's got a shield in the book, he isn't given his defense bonus defense 9, so that would make a difference if he was defense 9, but alas, he's still only defense 8, the same as Thrain. Thrain has got a battlefield standfast, which is really cool, and he's also fearless, but other than that, he's pretty much exactly the same as Thorin, and Thorin's got a cool few moves up his sleeve with the Oakenshield and Orcris, so that unfortunately makes these two a bit overpointed for what they do. So Thorin's really the front runner for building your army, so he's pretty much the guy that you always go for. He's the first one in the army list for me. So with these two out, you then think, who is he going to lead? Now you could, in the Unexpected Journey book, you've literally got Grimhammers, who look super cool. Oh, look at that. They are, believe it or not, defense 6, which is an outrage. So when you look at them, there's no sword getting through that. Yeah, they're fight 4, strength 4. Are they strength 4? No, I think they're only strength 3 actually. Defense 6, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 4, so basic dwarf. They do have throwing weapons, and they do have the option to two-handed piercing strike, which is a new feature to the Unexpected Journey rules. Over the Lord of the Rings rules, which I guess is the reason perhaps they're defense 6, is because it's less of a risk if you do piercing strike, but I'd much rather see these guys as like defense 7 and still have the piercing strike, because then it is more risk and more fun. But their throwing weapons are fun, which is it's not really worth it when you got the new move and shoot penalties, because they're hit on 5s. But they're always worth having a few scattered around. I'd never take a full warband of them. What I would take a full warband of, and potentially 2 of, are these guys. The Warriors of Erebor. they are defense 7 with their shield, so you wouldn't not give them a shield, which is weird because they're so clearly much less armoured than the Grimhammer. If you look at him, he's got all cloth all around, a couple of sort of Grimhammer armour aspects, flat, all that cloth, and then look at this guy who's just encased in armour. That's insane. So he's defense 6, and he's defense 7. So you would definitely take a front line of these guys. And the unique thing is with the Warriors of Erebor over the old Durin's Folks Dwarves, is now they come with spears. So you can quite safely have defense 7 front, and then this guy in behind. So you got fight 4, 2 attacks, defense 7, which is always handy. And then this guy leading the line as well, hacking through some stuff. It's very, very strong. Even if you just have literally 36 of these guys and then a couple of big heroes to lead them, it's automatically a very strong army. So at the moment we're looking more at less the Grimhammers, maybe some thrown in just for their throwing weapons, which can be handy. Defense 6 is still high, but for dwarves it's you'd always, if you can, you'd always go for defense 7. So at the moment you really go for Thorin as your leader with the Oaken Shield to make him defense 8, leading a bunch of these Warriors of Erebor. And then you've got to start looking at other heroes to put in. So who could you put in? Now the one that immediately stands out straight after Thorin in the book is Dwarven. This is the Champion of Erebor model, but he is absolutely epic. He is fight 6, strength 5, defense 6, which again for dwarves is low, but when you're fight 6 with 3 attacks, he's not going to be getting in much trouble, hopefully. 3 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 6, which is relevant because he's fearless, and he's only got 2 might, 2 will and 2 fate actually, but when you find out that he's got 2-handed weapon and burly, meaning he doesn't get his -1 to duel, with strength 5 as well, makes him incredibly powerful, and even more so when you do this to him. Put him on a pony, because then he still gets his charge bonuses as if he's riding a horse. So immediately you go Thorin leading Warriors of Erebor, and Dwarven probably exactly the same. And then that already gives you a decent 400, 500 point list. Then you can start adding banners and things like that. Then you can start adding in small characters like Balin, just as a cheap sort of support hero to help these guys out, because Thorin and Dwarven will literally just be running around smacking stuff and destroying stuff as quickly as possible. Tactically wise, the dwarves, usually I'm an elf player, and I find that in a game that elves will just back away and shoot and shoot and shoot, and will want to be charged first so they can counter-charge and get as many dice in the places that they want. Whereas dwarves, you always want to charge first, so you can choose where your heroes go in. So if I've got charging into a line of goblins or whatever, I want Dwarven going straight into 2 or 3, Thorin going straight into 2 or 3, and heroic combating and just making a big hole in the middle. Is pretty much what the dwarves do, get into combat as quickly as possible and kill stuff as quickly as possible. Because dwarves probably are going to be outnumbered, because they're quite highly pointed models. So I mean, these guys will be in the double figures, as will Grimhammers for each hero, and these two are going to be in the hundreds each. So yeah, you always want to be charging first. And the great thing, if you charge these in to the front rank and call a right combat with them, to stop them getting surrounded and stop that happening, you can have these guys on the flanks shielding and protecting your wings. They don't need to be winning the fights, so you can just be ploughing through the middle with the dwarves and eventually get through to their weaker heroes quite early on, which has worked for me several times. So yeah, that's the sort of straight away what I look at when going for a Warriors variable list, I suppose. It's not really Army of Thrall because Thrall's not in it, but you know, you know what I mean. So that's a good 500 point starter. Is just Dwalin, Thorin, Balin, and 18 Warriors variable, I guess. Take 12 with shield, 12 and 6 with. Take 12 with shield and spear and 6 with shield, and then 6 of these guys just for a bit of range, which I never really bother with dwarves, to be honest. I just like to get them in and smash stuff up. But if you do want some range, I'd recommend allying in Durin's folk and then getting some of these guys who shoot on a 4-up and they have strength 3 bows. So they are worth taking, and they are defense 6 base. So defense 6 archery is really good, but I wouldn't put too many points into these guys, if I'm honest. Maybe have 6, 8 maximum if you're taking sort of a closer to 600 point army. 500 points I wouldn't even bother. 600 points I wouldn't bother with range. But when you're getting up to 700, 800, 1,000 points, I would perhaps start adding these guys in. And to lead them, this is where you get quite a lot of options with Durin folk, because dwarves are quite well pointed for their heroes, other than Thrall and Thrain, like I mentioned earlier, who are far too much. They do have some good ones in Durin's folk, and a popular one, because he's so great in the films, in the Lord of the Rings films, is Gimli. Gimli has always been good in the game and is still good even in the new rules. Fight 6, strength 4, defense 8, 3 attacks. Option to go 2 attacks two-handed, but no -1, which is cool as well if you need to take down something that's quite tough. Good courage, 3 might, 2 will, 2 fate. So he's not going down that easily. Yeah, he's just a sturdy figure. Less than 100 points as well, and he's got his throwing axes. So Gimli's always good fun, and he's cool in the films, so he's one to take. And then, very similar to the Warriors variable, are basically dwarf warriors. They're exactly the same, so he can lead sturdy troops as well. They are literally exactly the same stat line as a warrior variable, if you wanted to do that. Another hero, which is very popular, but is often taken incorrectly. Obviously it's completely legal, but he never quite fits in with the theme, unfortunately, because people want to take him with Balin because with Thorin, sorry, because young Balin is so awful. He's more of a support hero in the Unexpected Journey timeline, whereas later on, when he goes to reclaim Moria and eventually dies, and we meet him we'll see his tomb in the Fellowship of the Ring. In that era, Games Workshop had already made a model for Balin, and that was the son of Fundin profile. And here he is. And he was a combat beast. He was fight 6, strength 4, defense 8, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 6, 3 might, 3 will, and 1 fate. So he was really powerful compared to the new Balin, which is fight 4, like strength 3, 1 attack, defense 5. He's really just there for the re-rolling priority rule, whereas this guy is there for killing stuff. And he's fine to take with Thorin, because obviously he's alive at the same time as Thorin. You could take this one, no problem, just if you want, because Balin's cool, he deserves more attacks. However, he's often taken with this axe that he's holding down there. And that's Durin's axe, which he doesn't find until after the Hobbit timeline, which makes him even stronger. He gets +1 to wound, and it counts the banner to him for literally 10 points or something, and that still makes him under 100 points and cheaper than Gimli. So you can see why he's taken, but he's often taken in contingent with Thorin, with Orcus and the Oakenshield, and Dwalin, whoever, and it just doesn't fit the timeline. For me as a theme, well, I try to play theme competitive. I never try and break the timeline or anything. So if I were to take him, I'd take him without Durin's axe, even at a proper tournament. If I was going to take him with Thorin, with the Oaken Shield. So yeah, he's a very good option. Another one, which is very, very, very popular, is this guy. It's the King's Champion. He is quite a bit more than Balin and Gimli. However, it's not just him you also get 2 banners. That's right, 2 banners with him. So he is fight 6, strength 5, the same as Dwalin, 3 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 6. He has 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate. So that's a little bit weaker than the other heroes who are looking at 3 might each. But he has some very cool specials where he comes with 2 heralds, which are defense 7 each as well. But however, if they are touching like so all 3 of them are touching each other, that means the King's Champion and the heralds are now defense 9, and they can share each other's will points and fate points, which makes them very, very, very difficult to take down when he is fight 6 and 3 attacks, and then defense 9. So you can see why he's popular. He's got 3 attacks, and he's got his banner as well, so he's basically got 4 attacks to win a fight. So he is a very popular choice, and he isn't that expensive. He is still cheaper than Thrain and Thrall. This is when you start so we've already talked about the Dwarf Warrior being exactly the same points as a Warrior of Erebor, so he's always a good shout. Defense 7, just fight 4, it's good. And the Dwarf Archer for a strength 3 shots. But then you can start adding people like these. Khazad Guards. Now these guys are great. Literally, even having a full warband of them, they are worth it. They are just about in the double figures, points wise. They are fearless, they are fight 4, strength 4, defense 7, so immediately better than the Grimhammer. And they do have the option to 2-handed piercing strike as well, which, unless you're outnumbering your opponent, you probably wouldn't. So these are one of the original elites for Durin's folk who came out at the same time as Balin, son of Wundin, in the Shadow and Flame. So yeah, that's them. And then the second elite, which is also very common, is the Iron Guard. Iron Guard, he is quite expensive. You'll see why, because he's fight 4, strength 4, defense 6, which is again low for a dwarf, but he's got 2 attacks, which is was unique in the Lord of the Rings era amongst troops other than the Uruk-hai Berserker. So having strength 4 and 2 attacks makes them a very good shock troop and able to take out quite weak things very, very quickly. They also have throwing weapons as well, so they're an excellent sort of flanking unit. So you send in sort of 4 around each side, and then they can take out the weaker points of your opposing force very, very quickly. So you're sort of seeing an army coming together where you've got Thorin and Dwalin leading a bunch of Warriors of Erebor, which probably makes about 400, 450. And then when you're going up to about 700 or so, you start adding in this guy, who's perfectly themed with Thorin, have a King's Champion with Thorin, because Thorin is the king under the mountain, so take the King's Champion with by all means. And then he's got his 2 heralds, so you've already got your banners in there, you're not paying extra for banners. And then you can start adding in, I'd say Gimli over Balin, and then take in some elites, because you've already got your chaff with the 4 warbands of Warriors of Erebor from Dwalin and Thorin. So then you start adding in some real hit power from your troops as well as your heroes. So there's already a lot of might in there as well, so you're now looking at about 700 plus points. Now what do you start doing? So if you're looking at 1,000, I'd recommend start adding in some magic. Now, which wizard I think is the most themed with dwarves? You could go Radagast, but personally I'd probably go for Gandalf the Grey. He is always willing to help the dwarves. He obviously helped Thorin and co get to back to Erebor and reclaim their mountain. And he's also very sensitive, given in the Fellowship of the Ring with Balin, and yeah, he's got a fondness of dwarves. Well, he's got a fondness of all good creatures, but I think Gandalf fits best with this army. He can cast Blinding Light to protect them a bit more from shooting if it takes them a while to get there. Obviously you're not going to be losing many because you're defense 6 and plus, but that little extra, your opponent needs 6s to hit and 6s to wound. He's got offensive magic and defensive magic if he needs it, so I think he's a good all-round wizard to have with this army. He's a good fit. But another little character who could do a similar job, which is essentially immobilising heroes, and he's very themed if you're not taking Durin's folk, but just taking Thorin and his company, and that's Bilbo Baggins. He's got the ring, which makes him basically half fight values of enemies that he's in combat with, so essentially a little immobiliser. So if you tag team him with Thorin, King Under the Mountain, they are a very, very good killing duo. Obviously that is very expensive, you're looking more at sort of 900, 1,000 points that you'd use these guys in, but if you don't know, Thorin, King Under the Mountain gets to call a free heroic combat every turn. So he charges in, do a orc, say, and normally you probably wouldn't call a heroic combat because it's just killing one guy, but with this guy you go, hey, why not? Put him in as well, half orc's fight value, that doesn't make a difference. Fight, you're probably going to kill him because you're Thorin, and then charge into your opponent's leader, who could be, say, Gothmog. Let's say Gothmog. And actually no, let's say Azog, make it themed, charge into Azog. So you charge into Azog, Azog's higher fight value, charge him in too, not anymore. And Thorin has all of a sudden got 3 attacks for him, 1 for his little helper, so we've got 4 dice, striking Azog, and Thorin does D3 wounds, because obviously you take him with Orcrist. Probably a dead Azog. So they are a very, very cool kill team, and with Gandalf as well. It's already looking like a very, very themed army. So yeah, that is what I'd look for to building a dwarf army. So to summarise, for a low points cost, sort of about 400 to 500 points, I'd take Dwalin, probably on a pony just to beef him up a bit, and Thorin, maybe on a pony as well, but I'd definitely take Orcrist and Oakenshield, and just take pretty much chaff, take high defense units, so probably a warband of the Warriors of Overworld Shield and Spear and a warband with the shield, so that'll probably take you to about 450. Then you could add in a banner or something just to round it up, or the Thorin's Company Balin, just a support hero. And then if you're adding to that, I'd then probably ally in Durin's folk, of which I'd take Gimli, and then start putting in my elites of Khazad Guards and Iron Guards, etc., just for some extra hitting power. And then start adding magic, which for me would be Gandalf the Grey. So yeah, that is how I would look to building my dwarf list. Let me know how you look to build yours. Maybe you completely ignore theme and just go, yeah, I'll take Balin, Son of Fundin with Durin's Axe, and take Thorin, King Under the Mountain with Orcrist, and take Gimli or whatever, and it's all a mishmash, just because you like the really cool hard-hitting heroes. Yep, cool, let me know. And let me know if you're complete opposite in that you will willingly take an awful list, such as Thrain and Thror in a 500 point list just because fun. So yeah, hopefully next week I'll do a different army, probably elves or something, because I'm quite keen on them. I've got quite a collection of them. If you'd like to see any more of my dwarves, comment below and I'll happily do a video showing them. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this, and follow our blog, like us on Facebook, and yeah, comment and subscribe.